I got the recording going. So, yeah, go ahead, Marg.
All right. So now.
Who the fuck pinged me?
Me. Deal with it. Yeah, I have customers in Texas, and that's one of the things we usually talk about is the weather because it's such a polarizing difference where we're at.
Oh, yeah.
RJK, there is a new voice in the chat. A wild lone has a.
No, inconceivable.
Well, maybe wait a minute or so, let a few more people join in.
Yeah, we'll give it another minute or so.
Okay.
I feel like I've seen these images before, but
I
think so.
Some you've seen, some you haven't.
Yeah, I think so. I just don't
honestly,
remember.
Some of these I haven't even seen until today.
I work Tuesday through Thursday, so everything between then's a blur. Even before then's a blur. Oh shit, now he knows what I sound like. I guess I should run.
Screwed now.
Fuck me.
Where?
Hashtag banned from Twitch.
I just realized who she reminds me of. She reminds me of Liv Tyler.
Who?
Valentina.
Oh.
I can see that.
Who's that? I'll be completely honest, I still need to play To Be King version 1.
You're terrible, Lone.
The youngest daughter.
Oh, okay.
Here, I'll paste one in for you, Alon, send to you.
Oh, okay, so she looks like Morgan almost.
Well, hairstyle, yes.
Close enough.
She not tick, though.
Yeah, that's true.
All right. I suppose...
Hey, Wolves.
And just a quick note to everybody on the stream. Apparently, I have beautiful thunderstorms just forming over my area. So if Roy goes missing, it'll just be a power internet outage. So yeah, no tornado warnings or anything like that. But I just heard
enough battery backups to go about 3 minutes.
15 to 20, but that's assuming internet doesn't go out. So I'll stay on as long as I can, guys, for the importance of the stream.
All right.
So we'll get started here in just a sec. I do want to do a quick plug for those who haven't seen. There is a really cool dude doing Let's Plays of our game. His name is Mr. Doctor. He is over on an adult site. Not sure if I can actually say that on Twitch when I think about it, but if you're curious, just check announcements. We put a link in there.
I'm sure people could find it if they really search Google.
Yeah, he's very fun to watch. He's got a real neat voice.
His voice is fantastic to listen to.
It is. So definitely go give this guy a watch. But yeah, go ahead and take us away, Marg.
All right. Well, welcome everybody to our July Q&A. Had to think about that for a second. Today we've got Lone joining us as our moderator, so he's going to be answering not answering. I'm not with it today. Asking all of our questions. Quick note, there will most likely be spoilers for Point 3 and Last Call, so if you are sticking with us through this live stream and not waiting until after you play, we're not taking any fault for that.
Okay, you guys ready for questions?
Go for it.
Okay. This is from RJK. What's the devs team's thoughts about new roles and continued success of winning?
I guess when you're winning, right?
I was just happy not to have to come up with names, honestly. So I'm grateful that his names were as widely received. That was if it was a close call, it'd be kind of tough. But there seemed to be a borderline level of unanimity to it.
Mm-hmm. It's a little different when I've been typing them out for IG. I'm like, oh wait, that's right. That's what this tier's called now. It's the first time I've had to use them since we switched over.
Yeah, I'm still confused by the new roles. I might have to look in that.
And that's why I just go by the dollar amount. Usually so if anybody sees me posted on Patreon or Discord, that's usually why I give the dollar amount. I try to be better, but sometimes I couldn't remember them well before, let alone now. So it's nothing to do with them being poor names or anything. I think they're good, but I have enough stuff to try to keep track of.
So is Lone reading them then this time I'm taking it?
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah, if you want.
Sorry, I was logging into Twitch.
No, that's absolutely fine.
Okay, so this comes from Xena, whoever that is. How does Roy pick angles or set up for all the images or renders?
So it's a good question. Sometimes there's direction. Usually Inkwell, it's kind of the second part of that question. Does Inkwell dictate? Inkwell usually will dictate at least something close to the expression. Fun part is when Inkwell uses like a certain word for the expression, and then I have to go into my thesaurus brain and try to find something that then will match for an actual expression in DAZ. And sometimes play around and try to figure out exactly, that looks close enough for what that is. And there have been a couple of times where Inkwell has been so erudite that I've had to go and consult actually a dictionary to figure out what in the world that word was for that expression, and then try to find it to make sure I'm lining it up right. As far as composition, I have some idea. One thing is, you're trying to vary the camera angle from shot to shot. A lot of these things, if there's a lot of action happening, it's pretty easy. You can get different camera angles and different poses and things and make it interesting. But, people are talking back and forth. There's only so much you can do. The expression's going to sell it as well as the body language. So, and sometimes you just won't have body languages changes from render to render. And so then I'll move the camera around. I have a pretty good idea now on where to position cameras and things, but I'll always kind of just drag it around a bit before once I get everything kind of set up for a render and see, because I've stumbled on some really good angles that way. And then sometimes I have to adjust lighting or a few things to accentuate, but that's mostly how it, like all things, it's just experimentation, and there's some base poses and expressions and things that fit certain characters really well. You'll notice Annie gets slightly more exaggerated expressions because she looks really good with those. And Morgan, I would think, gets more, certainly less exaggerated, more subtle, because those tend to work pretty well on her, and it doesn't take much for her to be able to sell an expression. Annie got to go a little bit more extreme, kind of as an example. So you start to learn those things about your characters, and obviously then Inkwell's input's invaluable, especially sometimes dialogue might be ambiguous. Is this person being sarcastic? Are they really saying that? And then that's how you kind of know there.
Okay, next question comes from Steele. Does Roy sleep, or is he rendering all night long?
So I'd love to say I do sleep. Currently having some problems with that, unrelated to rendering. But I don't stay up rendering or anything. In fact, I'm usually pretty good about stopping and kind of middle evening, worst case 8 o'clock or so at night. I'll stop, just because staying up later is usually not productive, and also will keep me up quite extensively if I continue to do the things down my renders. Machine usually does go overnight, although we've been having some issues the past couple days with it stalling out while I'm sleeping. But usually renders will actually render out overnight, but setup and stuff's all during the day and early evening.
Yeah, I kind of figured just a robot. I didn't think you ever slept.
Yeah, you're fair. Yeah.
Okay, next question comes from Xerus. What's up with Max's eyes? It seems like they change color now and then. Is that intended?
Probably not intended. So DAZ and the way it works is the amount of lighting you have, the angle of the camera and everything will occasionally change some colors, and some characters seem to be a little bit more susceptible than others. I've tried to start to even that out as I've learned more. One thing you may notice is, like in .1, Annie His eyes would seemingly change color if I didn't have the light just right. And since I switched over to iRay, it's a little bit more forgiving. But I had to redo some renders actually for dot 3 because of some character changes I had done to her model, and that had messed up the eyes unbeknownst to me. And so I had to go back and redo like 30 renders where I actually had to edit the eyes and fix that and then fix it in the base model. But yeah, Max's eyes do not change color in terms of any settings or anything. So it's probably just a lighting camera angle.
Also, his eyes are the same color, both eyes. I've seen that come up a couple different times at another site.
Yeah, Annie's the only one with different colored eyes, and everybody else has the exact same eye color. But I mean, again, if you look at use my wife as an example, who's got dark brown eyes, in bright light, those look more kind of medium brown. But then standard light, darker light, they can look like almost black, just because again it's lighting, so they're not changing color, but it's the way the lights reflects. And congratulations, we went through all the questions. All right, great job, everybody. See you next month.
Cool. All right, so of course RJK has a question.
Yes.
Let's
Good.
see.
No, he has 10, so it'll keep us going for a while. At least that was his last count. Or no, was it 12?
Yeah. 12, I thought. Yeah.
Oh Jesus, that's wow.
No, it's a good thing.
Fun,
We
Lon.
want
My
questions.
dedication.
And
Okay,
otherwise we're
question.
left to our own devices, and then we talk about stuff that nobody wants to hear.
Oh yeah, could be bad. All right. Let's see. From RJK, if you have any questions or heated comments about any NTR signs after latest updates, thinking specifically along the lines of what happened with Annie. Oops, I probably shouldn't have read that, but oh well.
I already warned people, so they're on fault at this point in time.
Yeah, they're already here, but
An
oh well.
additional reminder that we will have some .3 spoilers, so if you haven't played and you want to keep the suspense, we will have this recorded. You can listen later, but log off. Not that we want you to go, but we don't want you to be upset that you're going to get spoilers.
I haven't seen it for this update. I mean, there have been the comments that Annie's ex could show up, and unfortunately, I'm not going to say one way or the other on that. If Inkwell wants to address that, he can. The only NTR comments we really ever had were about Kelly Jo. Yeah, and Inkwell doesn't want to comment, so that's fine.
I would say that I have seen certain things about that on certain sites that shall remain nameless, but this is not the opinion of Thunderline Studios or its subsidiaries, but it's Roy's opinion that I want to burn to the ground certain times. But it's just uninformed stuff. And again, we're not going to get into story and future stuff, but I mean, folks always love to think they've discovered something when, based off one isolated thing. And, sometimes that happens. Sometimes writers will drop that stuff. Other times you just read into stuff you want to see.
Yeah, ultimately, we're telling a story that we hope you don't guess it. That's the point. I mean, theories and guessing is fun to see, but, if we get it, we get along the line and it's not what you guessed, it's a win for us because we feel like we did something right. There are times where you're kind of supposed to lead into things during writing, and maybe Inkwell can elaborate on that. But there are times where you want to keep stuff close to the vest as more of a surprise, but you also have to be careful with how you do those because too ambiguous can piss people off, but just ambiguous enough is a real nice thing when they go, oh, that's really cool versus, okay, that's just stupid. But yeah, ultimately we got a story to tell and people are going to have guesses and people are going to be wrong. And maybe once in a while, people are going to be right. I guess I will say this. There has been stuff said that people have guessed right. And no, I'm not going to say what update it was from. But people have called in advance. They weren't 100% correct. They were on the right path, I guess is a better way to put it. But outside that, no, so far, no one has ever been 100% correct on anything.
Nope. The magic of Inkwell. And Inkwell's typing.
All right.
Hold up. We're gonna let Inkwell finish typing alone.
Okay, that sounds like a plan.
And thank you for all the questions, RJK. I actually still trying to figure out why you sent that GIF, Roy. Because I know I said something. I wonder if I had deleted it, maybe.
Yeah, probably.
Oh, I remembered what it is, but we'll get into that privately. So.
Damn.
So I guess I will address a question real quick. I don't know if Fat Matt's still in the chat, but the images you're not recognizing are from our second game, To Be a King.
And they're preview images.
Yeah, some of them are.
Some of them are
Actually,
preview.
well, Roy, what are they this time?
So some of those are preview images from Dot 2. So,
who wants to read Inkwell's response?
Yeah, sure.
Okay.
All right. Also, we've spoken to wanting to make a realistic story, and unfortunately, with some people's opinions, any fuckable character looking at any other male character would be called NTR. Reality, though, is if we're looking at realistic characters, they've had previous relationships, likely. Will not have explicit NTR, but those relationships allow for character growth and conflict. Even when our characters aren't currently in any of the previous relationships for the moment. That's pretty well said.
So yeah, RJK's next question. You didn't have to pull that one, RJK.
All right,
yeah,
RJK's. Oh, did you want you to say that, or
he wanted
okay.
me to read it? I'll read Inkwell's next response.
Oh, okay. Oh, my bad. Okay, from RJK.
You're the MC, man. You're technically supposed to do that, so you didn't do anything wrong.
I wasn't sure if he wanted specifically.
Usually, Mark's the one who reads.
Oh, he wanted you to elaborate, Zor.
That's elaborate on what? On what Inkwell said?
No, first question.
I mean, I don't know how to elaborate more.
Anywho.
Okay, number 2 from RJK.
Hold on, just one. I'm just trying to figure out what.
I'm guessing from
people,
what.
I'm guessing is, do people getting heated in the comments about NTR stuff bother you guys when you see it a lot on update after update after update, or?
It does. It's more because they're calling out stuff that isn't really there, and the definition of NTR, which I was told, here's a website, here's a definition, we don't meet. We have yet to even come close.
No, it's
if they want to say we have it, it's their opinion. They're entitled to it. I'm not taking that away from them. I'm just still going to say they're wrong. We're not making an NTR game. You're never going to explicitly see a character interacting explicitly with anyone other than MC, and it's never even going to be like a long-winded dialogue story. It's just not. You have to take into. I mean, people with the definition of NTR. The sad fact of the matter is, any game where a landlady, and anyone who knows what a landlady really is a conquest of yours, it's still NTR by their definition because, birth.
But, and the landlady is fucking the landlord or something like that.
Thank you, RJK. But yeah, it does. It's discouraging. I mean, it ultimately comes down to people trying to call out what's going to happen and then attack the game in such a way that I just don't feel it's deserved. I mean, it's just kind of discourteous. It's one thing if it's actually happening to call it out. Fine, yeah, that's what it is. Or if it's actually having happened. But predicting that or saying this, it's coming, or it's already happened. It's people not paying attention or not caring enough or wanting to make our game look like something it's not to scare off other people. I don't know. But so, Lone, go ahead and read a second question, please.
Okay, second question from RJK. Will we get more content that fleshes out the world? Right now, it's quite condensed. We got the bar, Max's house with a few rooms, some bedrooms, and a nightclub. Would love to explore and get to know the world of LC more.
So yeah, that's definitely going to be an Inkwell question. I will say this much in regards to, it's still a bit of a Roy question too, because when it comes down to, I swear to God, I'm only halfway through my first beer.
Oh Jesus!
Roy and Inkwell sometimes actually have to get in a communication and discuss what options that we have. Because Inkwell, he'll say that I'd like to do this, and Royal Tehran go, it's going to be difficult. I can cheat with this, but it's not going to be exactly what you want. And they'll either find a middle ground, or Inkwell say, I'd like to do this, and Royal say, that'll work. We can do that. Sometimes it's the issue of finding assets. We were dealing with wanting to do a specific scene, and I almost spoiled something there. And an asset was needed, and it's not really an option. And sometimes these cost money. And then on top of costing money, you also have to add in your own textures. And it's just not something Roy wants to do anymore because it is very, very involved on his end then. So
Looks like Inkwell reiterated your point to there, Zor. He said, great point. We'll be seeing more of Oaklane for sure, but we're a little limited due to environments and availability of environments. Also, Inkwell doesn't want to make a lot of one-off environments when there's so much work for Roy already.
Generally, Roy requests that if we're going to use an environment, we use it more than once. And once in a while, he does give Inkwell some leeway. Like, I think we'll end up back at that nightclub. I just don't know when.
I do have a question on that. Since this is a linear story and not like a sandbox game, does that also kind of make it harder to explore more of that world? Because I think it would.
It does. I mean, because then you're limited by the railroad of the story. But if it's a sandbox, again, this still boils down to what can Roy reasonably pull off that's not a drastic waste of time, and versus what Inkwell envisions.
Sorry, guys, I had to step away.
Unacceptable.
I just heard Zor's eloquent explanation of something that I caught like the last 10 seconds. So.
Essentially, we had a question about if we're going to be able to see more of Oaklane.
And we were just talking about how it, due to environment limitations, we try not to do one-offs because, and you can elaborate more on that if you want.
Yeah, I mean, it takes time to set up an environment. Environment setup is by far the longest thing I have to do because I have to customize it to some extent, usually. I have to check textures, make sure everything looks good. Lighting takes a while to figure out, okay, this is what's going to look good. And depending on the environment, I also have to try to find something for it as a base, maybe kit bash, which means combining some stuff. So, I mean, environments aren't something that I hate doing, but they are one of the they're more time consuming than even like a new character. And I think Inkwell answered it great here with the his last comment.
So go ahead and somebody read the loan line.
I'll get it
from there.
Inkwell said, loan it certainly can, in that I try to make environments interactions that are the majority rule, what most people would do, so less going to places simply to go, more purposeful movement. We usually do an extra environment, 1 or 2 an update so far.
Yep.
Speaking of actually assets, it's kind of part of what limits what you've been able to do and to be a king as well, right, Roy?
Yeah, I mean, I'm lucky that probably the last 6 months there have been more medieval, ancient assets than have been in probably 4 or 5 years on the Daz store. But I mean, there's still limits, and like I wanted to do something with .2, and I ended up kind of having to settle because what I wanted to find didn't really work, and a couple other environments I had to come up with for .2. They look a little more similar than I'd like to some other environments, but I mean, you can just only do so much. And again, too, it just, that also places where we can put the story and stuff. Inkwell and I usually have a back and forth, during script writing. If he thinks that I may or may not have an asset, I can check. And, I mean, sometimes it's a matter of I have an asset, let me load it, and oh, it's horrible, we're not going to be able to use it. So yes, something does exist on the Daz store, but then you actually try to put it into practice and it's, it looks horrible. If it's maybe got some, openings or something, it doesn't work. Or in case of rooms, there's tons of environments that like literally have like 2 walls for a room. So that limits what I can do with camera angles and all sorts of other stuff. And so it's not really a full environment. I mean, there's all sorts of things we could talk about in terms of even like the bar environment, right, Zor? Things we've run into. So
yeah, every update seems like there's an issue somewhere.
Yeah, I got to go back and redo that soon. So.
Yeah, if it's not one thing, it's another. But that's the one cool thing about Roy, too, is he is heavily dedicated to the artwork. He constantly wants to try and improve himself. He'll spend time looking at videos. He'll get a whiff of something and run it down and go, oh, look, I found this new way how to do something, which A, saves time, and B, looks better. So it's a win-win. And I I definitely don't dabble as much in trying to improve the code stuff that I have. I mean, I do have those 2 little scripts that run. I've been told I need to get a gallery up, so I think that's my next thing I want to work on. And possibly I've done UI changes every time, sometimes small stuff, sometimes big stuff. I don't know how much more I want to deal with changing the GUI, but we'll see. I think I just kind of went on a random ramble tangent, but yeah. So next question, I guess.
Yeah, from Paizono. Do you balance what you want to do against what you need to do? In short, how do you as a team make the choice between good enough or that could be better in order to ensure you still get content out the door?
We don't strive, unfortunately, for 100%. More like, what would you say, Roy, 95?
For like good enough, you mean?
Yeah.
So, I mean, I think I've given this before, but I'll give my quick philosophy on it, is that sometimes, you have to evaluate how much time is that extra 5% going to make to difference in the story. I mean, in some cases, I've worked on a render maybe 3-4 hours for a single render. If it's like a really impactful thing that needs to get right and something's just not coming together, it's just not looking right. But, in most cases, I mean, folks are going to go through these renders pretty quick. I mean, let's be honest. You're going to read the dialogue. You might kind of look at it, but you're not going to sit and dwell on it. This isn't an art gallery. So, yeah, I mean, I want to get something that looks believable, that, renders well and that advances the story. And, I think we all are blessed that we don't suffer from perfectionism. We definitely want to do better each time and we want to improve. But you have to realize too where you're at or what your skill level is or what assets you have available. And there's things that I'd love to go back and redo in .1, of course, and even .2 based on what I found. And there's some things that after having put out .3, that a couple things that I got good enough, but I'd kind of like to optimize a bit more for next time. That's just the way it goes. This is a journey we're all getting better at. And I think you can sometimes just, people can work on that perfect shot of the perfect film or the perfect musical score or whatever. And it just stops you from actually ever putting anything out. But that being said, we don't put hard deadlines on ourselves or anything like that. I mean, like if there's a problem or this is not working or this is not good enough or this needs to be tweaked, I mean, we'll delay a release and fix it. We're not going to just say, oh, well, close enough. Let's put it out there and we'll fix it later.
Well, and that was pretty much our Octane to iRay switch.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Because that set us back a bit, although ultimately it gained a lot more for us. But yeah, I mean, it was like I already had half the renders done or so.
Yeah, you were up to scene 10.
Probably half or a little bit over. And I mean, finally, I kept having problems. So how much longer that last bit would have taken is kind of an open question. But even so, we talked about it as a team and said, let's just bite the bullet and make the switch now.
I got a question from AOB86. Last call question. Are we going to see the MC's X at some point?
Yes. Yes, we
But
will.
we can't really say when.
Yeah. It's part of the story, and unless Inkwell wants to elaborate.
Inkwell said, spoilers, dude. I kid. Yes. We'll see Fiona when? Who knows?
That is the one thing we've been catching a lot of guff on is the way and time with which we're introducing our characters.
Oh, nice.
Some people say you should have them all out the door at once. Some people say, actually, most people say you should have them out the door at once. We're getting criticism for that too, but it's another thing where we're trying to be different with Last Call versus, would you say,
well,
Roy, we're definitely treating To Be a King different?
Well, I mean, not necessarily, because To Be a King, I'd have to look, but you have not met all the LIs in To Be a King, and you won't for a few more episodes.
Okay.
And again, that's a lot of it because we've got some LIs that it's story driven, and I can't introduce them any quicker, and I certainly couldn't have introduced them in .1. I think it's always a balance. We look back and trust me, guys, when we look at stuff and say, in hindsight, maybe we would have done that a little differently or something. But I mean, ultimately, I'm happy with there's not been anything that we've put out there that I've been like, oh man, that's like going to be a real problem for the story going forward or anything. And the beautiful thing about these is you can always play right back through, and the control key will skip right through renders, so you can get back to wherever you want and make decisions and move on through, and it doesn't take very long at all. I know, because when I have to beta and alpha test these things, that's what I have to do after multiple things to check to make sure changes were made and stuff. So I've never quite gotten the whole thing of, oh no, my playthrough's ruined, I have to start over. And it's like, well, I mean, I don't think that's too big. We haven't locked anybody. I think the other thing is we haven't locked anybody into paths, right, Zora?
No, something we've been very upfront and honest about. There is no locking yet.
Yep.
The
and
locking is
the key thing.
later.
And it'll be very...
It'll be very obvious.
It will be obvious that you are locking yourself to a path. We're not gonna try and shortchange you or surprise you. That's the thing we've said from the outset. You're like, oh, I don't want to do anything with Kelly Jo because it could hurt my chances with this girl. There is some path differences, and people notice that with .3, and I'm not purposely going to go into spoilers. Those that have played it will know what the differences are, and that is on purpose. There is a setup. I will say this much. The next one's going to have some other different things due to setup, due to choices, that you're going to see some stuff that similar to seeing Morgan or not. You'll have another scene with someone or not someone or someone else. It's just how it's going to go. The where I was going somewhere with that, and then I lost it.
Just the different paths, but I mean, we haven't locked anybody in.
Right, the whole locking in. You are not locked into anything right now. The big thing we want to do is give you. I know people are like, "Oh, Morgan's being forced to me. I've told her no. I've told her no. I've told her no." We just want you to get to know the character. At that point, then we can feel like we didn't shortchange you. And all of a sudden you get towards the end of the game, oh, I guess I really like her, and now I didn't do any of her content. This way you can at least have a feel for when you're actually like, no, fuck this, I don't want her. So unfortunately, that's just how that's going to go. That's how we are choosing to write this story. And again, we've said before, you can go this entire game without ever having intercourse or any kind of sexual adventure. Not kidding.
Last call chastity route.
Yep.
Yes, I may do that playthrough.
You know what? If we ever make it to Steam, that should be an achievement.
Yes. And I'll say, like, for To Be a Keen as well. I mean, I very much go off the Inkwell model in terms of, early on you're going to get dates or a lot of content or discussions or something with these characters as you get to know them. And that's the other thing too. Because Inkwell and I, when we were going back and forth over my .2 script for To Be a Keen, he commented that, this content's only available. This knowledge of something that may or may not happen later is only available if you're on, this person's, you're on this person's path. And I said, yep, that's correct. That's the way I wanted to do it. So little things are, depending on who you go with, they're going to change a little bit here and there. It's tough to do a fully branching thing just because it's a whole lot of work, especially for something that, like, what if you do it for what turns out to be an unpopular path for your players, and so like 10% of people see it. But still want to try to mix it up a bit on, I think, both games. And I think I like .3 with the way we did that.
RJK's got a great question. I want to hear what this one is.
All right. Since Roy talked about being able to put more background characters in the game from one of his dev updates, is this something we can expect more of in the future? Not just when big events happen at the bar, but in general, kind of like club scenes.
Yeah, I think it will. So big thing for folks who don't read the dev updates for whatever reason, because you don't want to hear me write, which is fine, or whatever. I did some optimizations during last call.3 that allowed me to quickly load characters in DAS. And this was a big thing before because an individual model could take anywhere from 3 to 8 minutes to load in. And so if you've got a scene with 5 characters, we'll say, you can multiply that yourself in your head of how long that would take to load just that thing. And then that's one render, and then it has to close it out and reload it. And so, I mean, you could be an hour and 20 minutes getting a scene loaded and rendered, and the render time of that's a small amount, but cut that down way down so I can load a bunch of characters into a scene without a lot of penalty, and also some graphics improvements and stuff I was able to do to fit those in. So they're not so detailed and everything like that. So there will be. I mean, we think it provides some realism, and we think definitely it's something that can set us apart from a lot of other games that either kind of Photoshop them in or that
Or even the
just don't have them at
composites.
all.
Because composites can be really difficult to make look right.
Yeah, the composites or something like that. Yeah, so we will. I mean, it's still the nice thing about Oak Lane is small town, so you're not going to have a massive amount of people from the bar from time to time. And sometimes Inkwell will write like literally like one person needs to be in the bar with MC or something, and that's it. Like he does not want anybody else in there. So you will have that sort of thing sometimes, but other times, yeah. I mean, you'll see more people in there. And because it's not going to be a big penalty. It's not really a render time penalty at all. And it's just a little bit more on the loading. And now we're talking like, 2-3 minutes extra per thing, which, even over 30 renders is not a huge amount.
All right, RJK.
All right, we got a question.
Yep. Sorry, go ahead, Lone.
From Paisano. Do you have any post-process presets or scripts you have used to make the post work more efficient, like Octane, etc.?
So I don't use anything there as far as that goes. Now that I'm not with Octane, and I don't do anything special with like my iRay render settings or anything. I don't like to do that because I like to get it as bland as possible. So then I can take it in Photoshop. And there are ways I could make it more efficient, but thanks to my limited skill at lighting and a few other things, occasionally things are like inconsistently lit from render to render. I've gotten a lot better about that, but it's still, especially with my characters usually changing positions and all sorts of other things in the scene, there's a lot of things that I may just kind of balance out. So I've looked at doing that sort of stuff, but right now it's not a big penalty for me. I've got some basic things that I just apply in Photoshop to every image, and then just some small tweaks to those values here and there. And then obviously, doing things like patching up in case there's some part that couldn't come out to get quite perfect in a render. I can fix that in post work with Photoshop, but there's nothing huge. I've got my set settings for both To Be a Keen and Last Call that are just applied to every render, depending on those games. And then from there, certain values are tweaked if it's a dark scene, if it's a light scene, if it needs to have more saturation or doesn't, all sorts of things. And then I can add certain stuff. You guys have seen like the flashback scenes, there's vignetting and color, pretty drastic color changes that are applied to those. And that's actually like multiple presets that I apply to those, and then occasionally have to tweak, but those are a little bit more standard.
Got another question from AOB. Another last call question. Are there any more romance options planned, and is Bobby one of them?
I believe we for sure can say at least all the love interests have been introduced in the game.
Yeah. I'm going to let Inkwell answer that one.
Yep.
Have to get Inkwell a text-to-speech engine for the future.
If he wasn't such a whiner about his voice, I'd just drag him in here.
Yeah. Get him one of those Stephen Hawking voice modulator things.
Oh, there we go.
Yeah.
I like Mr. Doctor's question.
All right. Inkwell
Yeah, that's a good one.
All love interests have been introduced. Some are more of a main love interest than others. Will have more forced
Intentional.
Intentional. Thank you. My brain was reading that as international. I knew that was not right.
Oakland going international.
Interactions to get to know them. All I'll say about Bobby is we certainly haven't seen the last of her. Gotta love them fiery redheads.
Oh yeah, of course.
So RJK, get ready for your next one. We'll do Mr. Doctor's from the stream.
Yeah, I can imagine that this question's been answered in Q&A before for all the new patrons and fans like me. Why and when did you decide to create your own VN? You've been planning this for quite a while, like back in what?
It started
fall of 2018.
No,
I
we
think?
started planning in June of 18.
I was gonna say it's been
Okay.
about 2 years.
Because I'm pretty sure I was talking to you about it too.
I think so. I just remember fall for sure. I know it was a little.
So
I don't think it was immediately after you joined Love Joint, but I know it's a little afterwards.
I'm actually the only original member of the team. Original, it was me, my wife, and another friend of ours. My wife ended up stepping out because of her professional career, and that's when she pointed us toward Inkwell, and he was very excited to join the project. So that answer, yeah. So June is the when, and that was the original team. And the why was, it looked like fun. I had fallen into these, and I ended up as a big fan of Love Joint's DFD, and that's where I met Lone. And it looked like something fun to do. Joking aside, it has its challenges, but any hobby's going to have its challenges. Take a person who likes to work on cars. There's always challenges. There's shit you don't account for. There's a lot of rust, or it's a mismatched car, and so now you're trying to get parts for this engine, but you need different parts that have to work with this transmission. But no, it looked like something fun that I could do with friends. Like, in fairness, making some money off of this is really cool, but I didn't set out with this to become a millionaire. I just thought it'd be fun to do. I have a coding background, so the coding, I'd set out, I was going to be the coder. We had a different artist at the time. And again, my wife was going to write. So we processed and created this idea of what is Last Call. And it isn't to say this thing didn't undergo changes. From what it started out, there was kind of a weird hump of massive changes, and it did end up dialing back toward closer to what the original idea was. But any changes from the original idea to where it is now, like, served a purpose and made sense.
Oh yeah, like so I know, like, original Morgan, original Fiona.
Well, yeah, and actually
vastly different.
So on that note, I think because we're holding one closer to the vest still, we had our Morgan and our Fiona, and they were very different from what they are now. The ideas behind them, Fiona being slimmer and Morgan being a thick girl, didn't change. But when we ended up bringing on Roy as the artist, I gave him free reign. I said, we have one character that can't change. Everybody else can go back to the drawing board. I don't care. And a real brief, funny story, and I'm going to forget where I was, so if people remember what we're actually talking about versus what I'm about to say. We had a Morgan created with Roy, and she was okay. I wasn't in love with her, but she worked. And Roy was then playing with some other stuff, some background characters, and then he sent me this one, and I turned, at the time, I turned to my wife, and I said, "This is Morgan." And I went back to Roy about 10 minutes later, and I'm really sorry, but that's Morgan now. He went, "Fuck." But, he went and changed her proportions to fit the style that we wanted for her. But I think I know where I was. So doubling back to the when and the why, we made, we had the script in December of 2018. And unfortunately, the artist that we had just didn't work out. There was a very long time of working with the artist. They couldn't get the stuff done. And I'm not going to go into it because it's, dirty laundry and all that. But we ended up with a falling out. After I brought Roy on, I did let them go from the project because it had been a year and we still hadn't released a .1. We barely even had, I don't even think we had a single actual game render.
I don't think you had.
Yeah, we had a couple of teaser images. And what's really cool about Roy, and just like scream, shut up, Roy, if I hit something that's too sensitive, I don't think I will. I reached out to Roy, I believe, early in June of 2019. And I said, "Hey, here's the scoop. I saw you started playing with this stuff back in February. I had to let my other artists go. Do you have any interest?" And short version on his response was that he was very busy. And at the time, I didn't know can I say what you do for a living, Roy, or no?
Sure.
He runs his own business. I'll just leave it at that.
Yep.
So he's got his own stuff to worry about. Me being a business owner is busy stuff. He came back about 6 hours later and said, "You know what? I think this is the outlet I need. I would like to sign on to the project." And he did. And he started busting his ass, learning more and more. He took stuff from Zine at the time, looking at changing over, learning how to do makeup more correctly. This guy is the most dedicated son of a bitch I've ever met. He spent hours going through YouTube videos about how to do makeup. A guy spent hours going through YouTube makeup tutorials, guys. So he started, again, busting his ass, and he it was chosen for him to do Octane, and no, not by me, and we're not going to elaborate. And he did get to work with Oz, if anybody knows him, for a good chunk of time and get him comfortable with it. And ultimately, with Octane, it just wasn't working for what we needed. We switched back to iRate. He's had way better success, and so that's kind of bringing us back to where we are now. We had our first release in February of this year. We just did our third. I'm trying to remember when we brought in Inkwell. I think we brought in Inkwell about 2 to 3 months after you, Roy. Yeah. About 2 months after we brought you on, we brought on Inkwell, and he took over the script. He did some rewrites to 1 before we did anything with it, and he's been doing it ever since. We brought on Marguerite as our social media dev. Like September, October for promotional stuff, or maybe October, November for promotional stuff, because neither Roy nor I had the time, and we didn't want to do Twitter, and we figured Instagram was a good way to do that. So Mark takes care of all that stuff. Lone has been with us since the beginning too, actually, since we really started, since we brought the Discord up. I trust him with my life, so he's essentially the admin boss on the Discord, and that's why he's here. And again, I just do the coding, nothing that exciting. I definitely think Inkwell and Roy have the lion's share of the work, because they'll spend weeks doing stuff where I think I coded .3 in 2 days to our alpha. But if that didn't answer your question, feel free to do a follow-up, Doctor.
And then we can page RJK if he has any more questions, too.
There we go, number 4. All right.
All right, thanks for the question, Mr. Doctor, and thank you for doing that Let's Play. Okay, RJK's 4th question. Sad we didn't get to see the darts game. Problems finding assets for a specific scene or going for the immersion route. Immersion equals that not everything needs to be seen by the MC for it to actually happen. Some games go at length to show everything, even if it doesn't include MC or for story purposes.
Part what?
Inkwell says both parts. So I believe, Roy, correct me if I'm wrong, there is not a good...
There's not really a good dartboard asset. There's really tough to get darts even positioned in anybody's hand if you can even find those. And I'll be honest, because Inkwell and I go back and forth kind of on this too. Is if it's something that's central to the story, I'm happy to go to the trouble and do it. But I'm all about efficiency with renders and is this really advancing things and stuff like that. And that's what I'm kind of looking forward to. So there's certain things that we'll kind of belabor, and there's a couple things I've actually got planned for .4 that I haven't even told the dev team about to kind of build up that immersion. Some things that I have some time now to do. So yeah, nothing bad. So we're gonna do that and kind of add in some things as we go. But there weren't any great assets there that I could find, and it was kind of a secondary thing. The other thing is, I think Inkwell does a masterful job of keeping his characters, and in this case, the MC, who's the central character, of course, everything through the MC's eyes. So since during that .3, the MC's attention was taken elsewhere. When the darts started, it made sense as to why we wouldn't see that, because the MC would not have been in that area. It's we're not an omniscient narrator point of view for this thing. So,
have you thought about adding any mini games into the game?
No, we haven't, and no, we're not going to.
Yes, I was just gonna say, I'm
hit and miss on mini games that I like thus far, and nothing against Dr. Pinkcake. I don't care for his because they're creative in that they do make you think, which is not going to make sense given the next sentence I'm going to say.
But they're tedious.
A little bit. I get why he's doing them. You don't have to do all of them. They're all about unlocking extra render. So there's nothing wrong with challenging your players a little bit, making it more like a game. It's just not something I want to do. Conversely, as dumb as this sounds, I'm a huge fan of NLT, and I loved his first game, and I'm loving Treasure of Nadia. He just implemented 2 updates ago a mini game, and they're essentially puzzles trying to get from A to B successfully without like dying from, generally it's snakes. I like those for some reason. I don't know why, but like I don't much care for the stuff and to be a dick. Now, in fairness, he as much as I dislike them, Pink keeps updating them and making them easier. And specifically like the fighting one, I actually really liked his very first iteration of that, and then a bunch of people hate it, so he changed it, and I don't care for the second iteration. But he's made the timing so much easier. So like they're way more accessible now. I think maybe that's what I initially disliked, is I didn't feel like they were as accessible, and I am not great at that. What's that game where you have to move little tiles around to make the image? I'm terrible at those.
Oh, I know what you're talking about. I can't think of what it's called,
but like his fighting one is okay, but like his stuff in class, sometimes those really get me. Holy shit.
Well, and I mean, I think I'll say for my mini games too, my stance on them is I think that we adhere more towards the novel aspect of the visual novel than maybe the game or sandbox type mechanics. So mini games almost would take you out kind of more of our universe in that sense, in my thought. And
it may, but I guess if it doesn't do it for Dr. Pink's, I don't know that it would do it for ours either. But I'll say this much. I'm not opposed to mini games. Like if a large chunk of our fan base are like, we want mini games, I would look into them. The problem is, what kind of a mini game do we do? Like a drinking mini game? Well, then that's kind of ripping off to be being a dick. A dart mini game, I can't imagine that's easy to do. Like I'm not a great coder by any stretch. I could probably figure it out, but it's getting into territory where I'm not sure I'd be able. If a game's delayed because of a mini game, I'm going to hate myself.
Yep.
Well, and not only that, but I feel like if we do add a mini game, like it has to add to the story a little bit. 'Cause otherwise, like you said, it feels clunky and out of place. I don't know. It just feels silly to throw a mini game in just to throw it in. But that's my sense on somebody who doesn't.
But yeah, we've also been asked if we'll ever do a sandbox, and definitely this game won't transition to one. We may look at doing one for a different game, but that is not a guarantee by any stretch.
Yeah, I'm not opposed to sandboxes. It's just you're going to set up the story differently. There's a whole lot of other things that are going to be structured around. And then the thought of me having to do map renders sends chills up my spine, and not in a good way. So,
No, you can do it. I have faith in you.
Appreciate it.
I'm gonna. Where are we? Okay, so we've got one from
another
AOB.
question. Yeah. You said we've already met all the romanceable characters, but we have not met MC's ex, Fiona. But you implied we will see her in the game at some point. But that would imply the MC can't get back with her.
Well, you've met her. I mean, you've seen her. I guess it is a flashback, but I guess the thing is, what we want to say met, we want to say more. You've seen renders of them, right? They've been in the story. It's not like you don't have any idea what they look like or who they are.
While Inkwell's typing, I'm just going to address Mr. Doctors here quick. We're not opposed. The problem is, like, if a translator would want money for it, we're not making enough to really be able to pay them. So it's, I guess somebody wanted to come do it for free, they could. I know, somebody reached out to me on Discord for Turkish. They do it for Turkish. They just pull it from pirate sites and then just do it that way and translate it. But officially, we have no plans, but if somebody reached out and wanted to do it, we could give them the script. Maybe. It's something we'd have to discuss as a team.
Inkwell's response essentially was kind of what Roy iterated. Meet does not necessarily mean that you had current interactions. Quote unquote, meeting romanceable characters essentially means knowing about /
Got another question from Roy. Zor, did you have a response to that, or to go further into that?
Go ahead and read it, Lone.
Okay. Will Fiona do a Jenny not being heard from in weeks, months, to suddenly arrive at the doorstep in front of the MC and say, "Hi, here I am now," cliche, but kind of funny, of course, to be followed by an awkward silence? which leads to another question about cliche. Do you mean Jenny as in like
I think he
Forrest
means
Gump
Forrest
Gemini?
Gump. Yeah, that took me way
Okay.
too long to get.
I wasn't sure because I wasn't sure if he was referencing another game or not, but that's the only other Jenny
That's
I
what
can
I
think
thought
of.
at first. I'm like, Jenny. Oh.
Jenny.
Looks like Inkwell's typing.
God damn it, Inkwell.
The one thing you do kind of have to remember about Fee, she's in the middle of her semester for school. Like, he didn't leave towards the end of a thing. She's in the middle of school. School is not anywhere close to where they are. Like, it's not a couple-hour quick drive or anything like that either. That's one good thing to keep in mind. Inkwell's response, though, RJK, well, she's certainly not out of the story yet. Fiona, I plead the fifth on the right to not disclose how or when she. So we'll leave it at that.
Okay, another question from RJK. Bobby, that was a good idea. Tried, true, and tested the way of introducing a new character. Lowers the guard of the player. Oh, it's just another dude, and bam, female with a capital F. Did Ink know that he'd do that from the start, or just something that suddenly came to him?
Inkwell, oh, we knew.
Yeah, that was planned from the very beginning, and that actually.
Bobby,
I'm actually not gonna elaborate on that because it might give some other stuff away.
Yeah.
So no, that was planned from the very beginning. That wasn't something where like,
she was a well-kept
this would be
secret
really cool to
for
do
all.
partway through writing .3. No, this literally was in the planning sense, pre-planning.
Yep.
Do 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 do. I'm just trying to like fill in the noise. Usually, I just cut this out when we're waiting for the actual recording.
Inkwell says, we also knew some might have figured it out, props to you, but it was mostly we wanted her name to be Bobby. Had to use the opportunity afforded us for some players.
Yeah, I don't know if anybody picked it up.
One person did somewhere, but it was like, oh, hey, she's got a name. Maybe she's...
Oh, they didn't pick up Bobby. They picked up Robin.
Right.
They had ripped apart the code.
Okay, another question from RJK. Talking about Bobby, who came up with her design? Was it difficult? How many iterations did she have to go through for getting the green light? I know the others have gone through the same ordeal. I thought Bobby had stayed the same since the beginning.
Yeah, so
because I remember back in June of 2018.
Yeah, it's a tough question to answer, unfortunately. Bobby is the only character I alluded earlier about. We had one character that didn't change. That was Bobby. Bobby sorry, she did have some changes, and I'll let Roy elaborate on that. I'll get this out quick. Biggest reason when we had created Fiona and Morgan, the originals, we just didn't care for them. We didn't find them that attractive. I think we've shared images with them, and they weren't that interesting. We knew what generally draws people to a game first is attractive girls, and it's kind of coupled with good renders too. So good renders of attractive girls. I didn't care for how they looked. Bobby, again, this was back when Xena was still involved in the project, besides just telling me not to talk too much. Xena and I worked very heavily with the previous artist to get Bobby to where we wanted her. I don't remember her having a ton of iterations. Like we've said, Fiona had 9, 10, 11 iterations. Bobby was only a couple. Like
Fiona was 27.
Yeah. So we got lucky with Bobby, I think, too. The one thing, though, is, again, she has had some changes, and I'm not overly familiar with them. So, yeah, go ahead, Roy, and elaborate.
Yeah, sure. So just a few. I mean, obviously the big thing is I didn't want to make changes that, since the character design was pretty well set, that would work. But there were some issues with the way the character was made that, certain expressions or things like that would just make the character look really awkward and like deform the face. So I did change that. And then the skin overall was the skin that Bobby had, but I made some changes to that as well. And we did did we change the hairstyle? Oh, I think we
had to.
I think we kept the same hairstyle, but we changed the hair asset. I think so. We're
yeah,
as close as we
there was
were to
some
the original
issue.
hair.
It did not translate to Octane originally, right?
Yep, and haircut and Inkwell just posted hair color was an issue on occasion, and yeah, we had to dial that in just a bit as well. Yeah, so when we converted to Octane, we had some issues with hair color as well as skin. Went back to iRay, which was fun since, of course, Bobby never got introduced in Octane, so but didn't know that at the time. And then there were still some other things, and then as I played around with the model as we got closer to introduction, I found a few things again that didn't change how she just looked, but would change how she would respond to expressions, and then I could actually put expressions on her without weird deformities showing up in the face. And trust me, Zora has seen these. There were some weird stuff going on. I'm like, yeah, I gotta make some changes, because otherwise we're gonna get to this and it's gonna be bad. I mean, there's still some things that, like a lot of my later models, I don't make certain changes. I know certain things I can and can't do, and certain things are just gonna be too extreme that are gonna mess with poses or expressions later. That even Annie and Morgan and a few others kind of have, and so I have to be careful. But Bobby was a whole new level that we had to go back to the drawing board just a bit with a couple things. But overall, I mean, it's the exact same thing I was presented with, just with some small tweaks here and there.
Go ahead, Lone. Mr. Doctor asked a question on Twitch.
All right. How does this written story itself look like? Is it some sort of screenplay, or is it like an abridged novel?
So that's an Inkwell question. I can answer it, but he's typing, so.
Then I can't wait to answer RJK's number 8 question.
I look away for 2 minutes, and he's already got another question.
No, I'm happy because...
No, I'm just giving him shit.
And like Inkwell's answering, but I'll just say real quick that, yeah, Inkwell writes more in a script style.
Yep. And then
for
this
game.
Speaking on technicalities, it's done in a Google Docs. So we all have access to it. And then when it's done, I grab the whole thing, throw it in a text file, copy paste. And then I use my script parser to read that into the individual scene files, the way that I structure it.
So Inkwell said, I have a background in writing and screenwriting. So initially I wrote it to look like TV/movie script, but working closely with Zor, I've started formatting stuff so it translates easier.
Inkwell initially would write the names of the characters, but in Ren'Py, you always shorthand it. I mean, you don't have to, but it's easier. So if you've ever seen a Ren'Py script, just like 2 letters, space, quotations, and then dialogue, and those 2 letters equate via variable definitions to a full name, and that's actually what presents on the screen is that full name. So yeah, Inkwell's been very receptive to me asking to change a couple things just to make it easier for me. And it sounds like I don't want to work that hard, but because he's doing it at the time, it makes way more sense to have him change the way that he writes everything versus me having to manually go back through it and take longer. Like doing .1 took me, I think an alpha for .1 took me probably a couple days, 3 or 4 days, with him doing the couple changes I asked him to make. Like I said, I actually would have gotten .3 done in a day, but due to a failure on my part to properly communicate how I wanted menu systems done, I ended up having to get on a call with him and screen share so he could tell me exactly what he meant in the script with some of the choice menu options and how it decided to this, how does it go to this, where's the jump point, things like that.
All right. RJK's 8th question. How difficult was it to not say or show any signs of her? Because it must have been damn difficult to trying to hide something that's pretty from us players. Wonder if Inkwell threatened you guys if you would have said something other than the fact that not all have been featured yet.
Yeah.
Who actually threatened us, not Inkwell.
Yeah, no, Bobby's my baby. If that
yeah.
start to give away
and
what
Bobby
the hell she
was shown in .1.
Yeah, from the back. Yep.
Not fully, but you saw her.
So yeah, no, it was. We wanted something fun like that, especially since we knew she wasn't going to be introduced until later. And for what? Go Go ahead.
hard to keep it away from you guys. I was more excited once everybody got to.
Yeah, like it wasn't.
excited more than
It was, yeah,
anything.
that's true. It wasn't hard to keep away. It was like, we want to get this out to, like, we love this because I think it's going to be a cool twist. Because it's not like a complete rug pulling. It's like, oh, this person we've heard several times is actually a girl. This is kind of, we figured it'd be a neat little twist. And then what was funny was the scene that you're first introduced to Bobby, like face to face talking to her. I got the script from Inkwell and I was actually going through that scene. And the problem was there was dialogue that said from Joe. And he says Bobby when any person would have said he, or in this case, she. But again, trying to keep it literally under wraps until Bobby walks in the door. I had to work with him and go, we need to rewrite this sentence. And I threw a couple at him and he ended up going, all right, let's do it this way. So it's still ambiguous, but it's not weirdly ambiguous. So it's again, if we had to make it in such a way where using the name of the person makes sense instead of where you would normally say a pronoun. But no, it was hard in that we wanted to get to that part because we knew that it would be a fun twist.
Okay, we got a question from AOB. I did not tell Morgan what her aunt said about her. Will there be any consequences either way?
I don't know. I don't think that gets into plot. I don't think we really want to disclose that, do we?
Yeah,
No.
I don't think we do. That if Inkwell wants to answer that, but
That's kind of a plot point more than anything.
Yeah, a lot of that stuff. And for those of you who maybe join us for the first time, we'll mention some things that may have already occurred and stuff like that. But we really don't want to give away much of the story or anything like that. I want you guys to enjoy it there going forward. So sometimes we do have to decline to answer these things and just say it will all be revealed. But again, multiple saves and stuff like that.
Yeah, we keep it pretty close to the vest.
Yep.
Yeah, Inkwell said no disclosure, but that's a small enough plot point, given what's coming, that it will not make much of it.
Speaking of the Google Doc, Zora, I just realized I needed to put my .2 script into Word and actually check for spelling and punctuation, since that's the one thing Google Docs does not do a great job of.
All right, looks like Archie. Not sure if RJK is done with this question or not, but let's go ahead. Ink, will we be able to ruin marriages in this game? Because Ellie is damn hot. I want to have some rumble in the jungle with her. Teacher by day, bar waitress by night. What's not to love? Take several fantasies.
yeah.
Typing, and I can tell you flat out, I know this answer. It's no. Ellie is a loyal, morally upstanding human. Funny thing, we told Roy, hey, try not to make her too hot.
Oh, we can't blame Roy for this.
Well,
I know.
You can blame Roy
honestly-
for everything, which you always do.
I honestly never found her that attractive. I guess.
Not a fat chance. in
I
hell,
think
so-
she's attractive, but
I mean, not that attractive.
again, we've made the mistake realistically of trying to make virtually a sitcom in VN form.
I think my opinion is, I think it's good to still, in these kind of games, still to have a female character that's not fuckable.
Mhm.
Well, but that's just my opinion. I'm sure a lot of people have other opinions about that, and that anything with tits has to be fuckable.
Yeah. AOB put Bobby's mom is pretty hot, hotter than Bobby, in my opinion. Good
Yeah,
luck getting her
unfortunately,
away
another
from
upstanding
Joe.
human being,
Yeah, good luck getting away from Joe.
Joe will come after you with his shotgun.
or at least a really big fucking
Or,
hammer.
or he might come after you with a BF8.
The fuck is a BF8?
Big fucking hammer.
Oh. Oh, BFH. I thought you said BF8.
Oh,
Oh, Jesus Christ.
There
get
are
another
also
drink loan.
S's.
I haven't had anything to drink yet. I'm sober. Actually, I might grab something to drink soon. Okay, another question. More props to Inkwell for still having the players witness Morgan's aunt coming in with some foreboding words, and RJK, I mean, JK, not RJK. KJ goes what? And MC basically says, "Oh yeah, I'm not having crazy. I'm not having crazy, so it's all good."
Oh, essentially just kind of saying like, "Hey, that good props. That was funny."
No, I definitely dot 3 for what it's worth is the one that I've been waiting for because we finally start to get into some meat and potatoes of the actual overall
Yep.
story, so people can at least have a little bit more reasonable assessment of their predictions. It I don't have an issue with the way that we did dot 1 and 2. We had to establish and set up our characters, specifically the main character. Gave you a better feel for the town. 2 got us a little bit more stuff. Your conversations you're having are earning you points. And then 3, we finally get to see stuff. Like I said, we're railroading you a bit. We want you to at least know the girl before you turn her down. But again, you'll never be forced into nothing that you do that you're trying to prevent will ever hurt you. In that it's just because you were forced to go on this date, you didn't necessarily get any points that make it so you all of a sudden can't be with this girl. Anything railroaded is never going to hurt you. All right, go ahead on RJK's number 11 loan.
Okay. So far, KJ seems to only have been a tool for the story to give players some payoff. Makes me wonder if she's to be a background character than anything more, since we've all gotten either tidbits of nice sexy lewds or short cameos. Resident Swede needs his cougar.
Thank you for referring to her as a cougar and not a MILF, because we want her to be a cougar.
All right, yeah, Inkwell's going to have to answer that one. I'm not even touching it.
And then after this one, guys, I'm going to have to bounce.
That's
I've got
fine.
resolutions. Inkwell, KJ is not disappearing. You'll notice she graced you with some sage advice in point 3. She's not out of the story. It's going to depend on how you play the game.
Dun, dun, dun.
Dun, dun, dun. Oh, hey! Good timing.
Go ahead, Lone. Read number 12, please.
Last one's for March. Is it a struggle having to decide what to post on Instagram now that we're getting more heavy in LC and having to keep to be a king in mind too?
I do say there are definitely days where I do struggle with what to post on IG. That's usually when I come to Discord to be like, hey, what should I post? Pick a number. It's usually days where I'm kind of, because when I post to Instagram, you have to keep in mind the caption that you post, the hashtags that you do. Like, there's a lot more to going in posting it than just the image itself. So yeah, it is. I try to keep a balance of, oh, well, I've done like two or three last call renders. I'm going to throw a couple back in. I'll try to balance it out with, oh, I posted this girl this many days. I'm going to switch it up and do this girl instead. With last call recently coming out, I've been a little more heavy on the last call renders than I have been the T-back, and that'll also kind of flip-flop whenever point 2 of T-back comes out.
It looks like 13's for you too as well, Mark.
What was the hubby's final verdict on Opeth?
Oh, his final verdict was meh. He thought they were okay, not his favorite.
That sounds like Furial.
Yeah, he's super into 80s hair bands. Like that's his main jam.
There is. Go ahead and read from Mr. Doctor and Twitch, please, Lone.
Oh, okay. Maybe I missed it, but I was surprised that Annie's heterochromia of her eyes wasn't mentioned by any character at all.
So the funny thing about her eyes, that's actually kind of a good point. I realistically, it'd really only be maybe MC or Morgan who would say anything because they're the only ones new to town. But again, it's in regards to her eyes. That was actually a call that I made when talking with Roy about eye color on the girls. And actually, at one point, Roy said no, but I postulated, could we do like purple or red for Morgan? Now, believe it or not, those actually exist. There's like 100 people in the world total that have red or purple. It's extremely small, and realized it was just too out there. But the heterochromia, the big thing was we wanted definition in the eyes with the girls. Each girl has a very unique eye color. It's kind of the big thing we went for, and it just seemed kind of fun to have Annie be the one with one of each.
All right. Well, I'm going to head out. everybody, I'm assuming everybody, you guys are going to keep this streaming for now. So thank you for the couple questions I got, and you guys have a good day.
Have a great weekend, Marge.
Bye. Have a good one.
Yeah, I do see Inkwell said, even at the beginning of the game, NC actually already known Annie for a couple weeks at least, if not. Actually, I think it was close. I think it was a month. So it might have already come up. It could have been off screen. But thank you, RJK, for all your questions. We really do appreciate that.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, we got a question from AOB. Patron question is the monthly dev Q&A with Roy and Zor similar to this. Yeah, this is the
this is it.
Monthly Q&A.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's with us because we're the developers, and no disrespect to Margaret, anything, she isn't directly involved with the game. She's involved with promotion, so that's why it's more about Roy and I. We probably should change that to Zor, Roy, and Inkwell, to be honest.
Yeah,
but it's just a dev QA. We thought it'd be kind of something fun to do, and what this is our 6th one, I think.
And I guess the other thing I'll point out, because it is listed as a Patreon benefit, and we take questions from Twitch and stuff, is right now we're not that big on that. But if you guys notice, this is going to an hour and 15 minutes, and so I think that as we get more and more questions, hopefully, as folks have stuff, we're probably going to defer more towards patron questions, and may not get to anything else if that's the case. So just kind of that was the way we envision it, and then downside of kind of getting started is you get if you want it to be a full featured thing, you do need to take questions where you can, but as we get more and more, I don't think we want to be doing this. We don't want to pull Philly style and do this for 3 hours, so we would just say, okay, well, we're not going to be able to get to anybody else's except patron questions. Excuse me.
But actually, if that's it for people, we might call it here, unless somebody has a couple last minute questions.
Yeah, I think it's a good idea.
I think RJK probably has a number 14 hidden somewhere.
Yep. He does. We're just waiting on it.
Maybe he's holding it for next month.
But other than that, at Thunderline, we're hard at work on the last call.4 and 2B18.2. So
that we are.
We never rest.
Well, you don't currently.
Yeah.
I feel like I sleep all the fucking time, though.
I actually slept like shit last night.
Yeah, me too.
Yeah, I've been up since, I think, 4:30.
Oof.
That's still a solid, 4 hours for me. It's not too bad.
All right, well, thank you, everyone, for joining us. We always love having the questions. I don't care if one
Absolutely.
person has 70. We love hearing from you guys. We do this for you, so as long as you're having fun, we'll keep doing it. But, says the scream, yeah, fuck you. Just during cart. I thought you quit watching those anyway. But, yeah, no, thank you again very much. We love doing this with you guys. So you guys have a good one, and we'll catch you later.
Thanks for coming.